Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Memories of Plymouth program. We're in the middle of our 7th year. You heard me correctly. It has been seven years that we have been bringing people in from Plymouth and the surrounding communities to share their stories, their memories of Plymouth and your community. Some of you were born here, were brought up here, educated, had a job here, or just came into Plymouth to socialize. But regardless, it's important for us to remember what a community is. Today, I'm pleased to introduce to you our next victim. I'm so happy to have Dick Burhoe with us today. Thank you, Dick, very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, boy, I'm holding on to you, Tracy. So we have about an hour that we would like to ask a group of questions to you, and you can pass any time you'd like and can share. And I might shut you down here and there if you talk forever. I'll have to bring you back at another time. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's begin. Would you please state your full name for the audience today?
Richard Burhoe.
Oh, there's a middle name in there, isn't there?
Wells.
And is Wells,
W.
is it named after anyone?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, then I'm not going there. All right. When were you born?
I was born December 31st, 1938.
1938.
In Campton, New Hampshire.
Campton, New Hampshire. Was there a hospital there at the time?
No, there was not.
All right. And so would you have had a midwife?
No, I was. We had a doctor in town, Mr. Cheney.
Mr. Cheney.
Who delivered me, as well as many, many other babies during that period of time.
Wow. All right, then.
So I was born at home.
And that was in Campton?
In Campton.
Thank you. Mother's name?
Henrietta.
Henrietta.
Yeah.
Did she have a maiden name?
Burhoe, B-U-R-H-O-E-S.
All right,
Yep.
all right. And what did she do for an occupation?
Well, she did many things over the years. She sold baseballs for Draper Maynard Corporation.
Wow.
She worked at Dole's Wooling Mill in Campton for some time. And she always seemed to be working, doing something.
Mm-hmm. That's the way it was it not?
Yes,
Absolutely.
it was. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was not easy.
And your father?
I really didn't know my dad. I had a great stepdad, fortunately, and he was wound up just being an incredible person.
That's nice.
And I was very fortunate.
Mom's a stay-at-home mom, along with what you just mentioned, working at Draper and Maynard. And Dad, your stepfather, was his occupation?
He worked with B.B. River, Draper Maynard Corporation, for many, many years. Retired from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. For me, that's a fascinating place, B.B. River.
Yes,
Self-contained community. Amazing.
It
Just
provided
amazing.
a lot of employment for a lot of people.
It sure did. It sure did.
And B.B. River.
Very close by.
Yes, it was.
It did. Did you have siblings?
I have 2 stepbrothers and a stepsister.
All right.
Yes.
Are they still living with us?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Yeah.
Close by or far away?
One of my stepbrothers lives in Florida. My stepsister lives in Campton, and my other stepbrother, Bob Butler, is in, my goodness, New York.
New York. You had to
Yeah.
think about that one.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
The state or the
Yeah.
city?
I don't know why, because he's been there forever. Yeah.
All right, then. You have a wife,
Yes, I do.
and we have her here today.
Yes, we do.
And so I'm waving to her now. Would
Tracy,
you like to introduce
yeah.
her?
Yeah, my wife Tracy Mooney. We've been married, oh boy, I'm going to get myself in trouble. How many years?
30+. She's thinking too.
30
this
plus
is good.
years.
All right, then. And you said recently to me you have grandchildren?
I have 2 great-grandchildren. Yeah, I have one son, and I had 2 grandsons. One, unfortunately, had a automobile accident, and was killed.
Wow, sorry.
But my other son is Robert, and he has the painting business, Pemmy Valley Painting, and he lives in Campton. he has one daughter, my great-granddaughter, Caitlin, and she's, I'm going to say about 34, 35, and two great-great-grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Darian and my,
I heard it.
yeah,
What was that? Julian?
Julian.
All right.
Yeah, and he's about 6 months old.
Wow. He's a
Yeah.
baby. He's a baby. Oh, that's great. Let's move into your education. Let's take us back decades. And did you have a kindergarten to go to? Because remember, kindergarten wasn't regulated for a long time.
No, I was raised in Campton, of course, and we got to go to the big school, which was the Upper Village, which had two classes, first through fourth and fifth through eighth. Actually, I might say at the same time, I think there were 5 other schools in Campton.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. I guess a lot of people had to walk long distances, so in order to counteract that, they built these schools.
That's where the evolution of the one-room schoolhouses came
Right.
to be.
Yeah.
People didn't have the transportation way back when, so where the children clustered,
Yeah.
they created a school.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But we had the big school, the 2-room school.
Oh, all right then. You're standing
Yeah.
a little taller right now as you
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the teachers that you had?
Yes, I had Mr. Batchelder's mother was my first grade teacher, and then I'm not sure. After that, I had Mrs. Dole from the 4th grade to the 8th grade, Lavinia Dole.
So would have married into the Dole family, or she was a Dole?
I think she would have married into the Dole family, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
And then you had Ella Batchelder, which I also had in kindergarten in Plymouth.
Yeah.
So
In
that
my-
really takes
in my
us
first
back.
grade, yeah.
We're related.
Pardon me?
We're related now because of that. Oh, everybody seems to remember Mrs. Batchelder.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
She used to talk about her Billy all the time.
Mr. Batchelder,
Yeah.
or Judge Batchelder,
Yeah.
as many people remember him. Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting.
But to her, it was her Billy.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you were there till 8th grade.
8th grade.
Then we moved to Plymouth High School.
Yes, and the reason that I moved to Plymouth was, well, a couple of reasons actually. The first being I really didn't want to take a bus back and forth to Plymouth from Campton. So I didn't have many options after that. So the option was to move to Plymouth, which is what I did. I came to Plymouth. I got a room at Blake's Tourist Home on Highland Street, and I got a job with their son, Warren Blake, who had Blake's Restaurant on Main Street in Plymouth. And I worked there for all 4 years that I went through high school.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been difficult, being 15, 16 years old.
I'm sure it was, but it didn't seem that difficult at the time.
So you walked to high school.
I walked to high school, oh yes.
That's great.
And I went down to Blake's and got my lunch.
Now we're getting there. Now I
Yeah.
understand why you did this.
And once in a while we'd go to Newberry's and have a grilled hot dog or
Yeah,
something.
that's what everybody remembers.
Yep.
Yeah, those places, we don't have many of those places right now on the main street.
No, we don't.
No, we need to bring some of those back if we can.
Yeah.
That's neat.
But that's how I came to be in Plymouth, was to go to high school.
Did
And
you?
had my mother not insisted that I go to high school, I probably would not have done that.
You would have not have gone to high school?
Gosh only knows what I'd have done, but I probably wouldn't have gone to school.
Well, thank your mother right now.
Well, I have many times.
And there's so many times I wish I had thanked her more then,
Yeah.
because we no longer have them around to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
But it was quite an experience for a youngster.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very rare, I would say, just to leave
Yeah.
your home and come into a town. And Warren and Lillian basically watched over you.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Wow.
Made sure I didn't get in any trouble. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you walked to school. Did you participate in extracurricular activities? It could be sports, it could be a yearbook, any of the group. I don't even know if they
Yeah.
had those kinds of opportunities for students then.
Well, they did, but unfortunately, I would be working when most of those were taking place, so
That's right.
I didn't get to play sports like I perhaps would have otherwise.
Do you have a love of sport?
I like sports, yeah. Yeah.
Is there one in particular you would have played?
No, not really.
Okay.
If there were, it would be baseball, probably.
Baseball.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for doing that. Let's see, what do we have here? Memories related to your businesses. So I'm going to go back as far as we can. When was the earliest that you were working?
Oh, wow. Wow, that really gets back there.
Yeah.
Well, as a little kid, I did anything to make a buck. I sold cloverine salve for a while, which you could get a tube of 10 or 12, and you went around to your neighbors and you knocked on the door, and I'm Dickie Burhoe, and I'd like to sell you a can of cloverine salve. And most people knowing me would spend the quarter or whatever it was at the time and buy the salve. And it led from one thing to another. I sold seeds in the spring to the same people, of course.
Where did you get the seeds from? Would they be in a manufactured package? Or?
Yeah, from a seed company. You would subscribe to a packet of seeds, which were X amount of packs in a box, and you sold those. And in return, you normally got prizes or credits. You didn't get money, but you might get a fish pole. The first thing that I bought was a Bible, believe it or not, and I'm not sure why, but I did. But anyway, I went on and I sold shoes at some point, and then finally, when I was old enough to work, perhaps not legally, I got a job at a Howard Johnson's in Thornton, New Hampshire, which was up on Route 3. And that was quite an experience. It was a summer job, and that's how I kind of got interested in the food business, even though I started with peeling potatoes and pots and pans, and we used to make lye soap and all kinds of crazy things.
I think I asked you, I wanted to know where the Howard Johnson's was, and I had worked at Blake Mountain. Was it close to Blake Mountain?
It was next to Blake Mountain. Yes, it was.
So when I drive by that, I now think of
Yeah.
Howard Johnson's as well.
Yeah.
Just to give some reference to our audience today.
Yeah. Well, I had a postcard of that, and I tried to locate it before I came here, and I don't seem to be able to find it. But it was an interesting place. It was a big restaurant.
Wow.
It had a gift shop with all the White Mountain souvenir type things, so the little birch bark, whatever it was, and keychains, and it also had a 28 cabins, 28 little individual cabins, and it was quite a popular place.
Well, we have to remember, we only had Route 3. We did not have
Right,
93.
exactly.
And that was the route to the White Mountains?
Right, and there were a lot of good restaurants in that area. In fact, Blake Mountain had a small one. There was the Farm Kitchen, which was very well known, and that operated for many, many years. And I forget the one that was very popular. It had the birch trees growing out of it. Was across from the Farm Kitchen. But there were many restaurants up through that area.
How did you get to work there?
I'm not really sure how I got the job, but I had a neighbor who drove, and she used to pick me up at the dam and take me to work and then bring me back and drop me off at the dam.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how
That was-
old were you then?
Oh gosh, I was pretty young.
Trying to remember what the legal age for us
Yeah.
to be working then, and I don't
Yeah.
even know if it was stated
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. I do remember that part of the package was they did what they could to entice kids to stay the whole season, not quit like on Labor Day, when that last 6 weeks they needed people.
Absolutely.
So they would promise their employees an extra, well, in my case it was $5 a week for every week I worked if I stayed through Columbus Day.
$5 a week.
That was a lot of money.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I don't mean to.
A lot of money, yeah.
Wow.
So that's how I developed an interest in the food business. It was quite an experience.
So let's continue. What's your next job?
My next job, I guess, is just to try to stay well and healthy. That's not so easy sometimes.
Where did they take you next? After you went to the Howard Johnson's area, where would we find you working next?
Well, I did a short stint up at the apple orchard, fertilizing trees and pruning trees and making apple boxes, but that was just for a short time.
Wow.
This is before I moved to Plymouth.
All right, so now you've moved to Plymouth.
Yep.
Keep going.
Well, as I just described, I worked for Blake's for 4 years.
4 years.
And I really developed a liking of the food industry, the food business, and I decided at that point that's pretty much what I was going to do.
Wow.
So with that experience, I, worked towards other places, other jobs, and to gain as much experience as I could, so I could ultimately, wind up with my own business.
You went to Florida?
Yep.
Because of a friend, and had to work
Yep.
down there for a while, still associated with the business.
Always with the food business, yeah. I did that for, I guess, 5 or 6 years, I believe, back and forth, until I finally was able to get my own business.
And I think the little I know you're telling me now, every time you went to a new business, you learned what you needed to do to move
Yep.
yourself and this business to a new level.
Exactly, yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
But you do end up with your own business, is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which one was that? Very first business that you owned?
Well, I did a very short stint in Campton with a little ice cream bar for one summer. And then...
Is it still there?
No, my goodness, no. That's
Okay.
a long time ago. And then the opportunity was there to get involved with the Dunlaps and Holderness and the old Windsor restaurant. Thanks to George Gilman, who is a local refrigeration man who I got to know quite well. I ran into George one day and I asked him if he knew of anything that was saleable that one could afford.
Wow.
And oh gosh, he says, yeah, you go see Charlie and Marge Dunlap over in Holderness, and they have the Windsor restaurant. They've raised their family there, and they're now retired, and they have a food truck. And they would like to sell their restaurant, and they'd probably work with you if there's anything you're interested in. So one thing led to another, and the next thing I know, I was able to buy that.
So can I show the audience what we have here?
You certainly may.
And you can share with the audience what this actually is.
Well, I think that's the poster of the first restaurant, the first season when I owned it, when I bought it.
And it does say underneath here, opening May, White Hat Restaurant of Holderness,
Yep.
formerly the Windsor Restaurant.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
And when do you think this was? I missed that one.
Pardon me?
What year? What year do you think?
I'm not really sure of that. I would say in the middle 60s.
60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I should tell you that I went to the White Hat Restaurant a few times.
Good, thank you.
Okay. You owe me right now.
Thank you. Oh, I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So we now own the White Hat Restaurant.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
It was not easy. The first summer was pretty quiet. And after a couple of years, I decided, well, maybe we better go year round. And the first winter, we played a lot of cribbage in the kitchen, waiting to see car lights come in the parking lot. But anyway, it only took a matter of a couple of years, and we really were doing really, really well. Yeah.
Trying to remember what it was like, how many people were starting to have second homes in the area at that time?
Well,
I'm
there
not
were.
Few?
It was beginning, but of course we had the luxury of the lake, which was a big draw. And we did anything we could to would be an interest to people. One of the things we did were outside barbecues, and we did those Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with the weather permitting. And we had a very limited menu outside. I think we limited it to like 4 items. You could get chicken and ribs, lobster, steak, and I think baked beans and hot dogs.
Wow.
And we did that in conjunction with the restaurant.
So we had to have seating outside
Yep.
as well as inside.
Yep.
Wow. But we had
And-
the lake across the street.
Yes, we did. Yeah. And we had George Thompson's grandson used to go between the picnic tables and play the accordion. So it was a
sounds
great
great.
thing because it gave people they could come and relax and sit outside and bring a beer if they wanted to or whatever. And so it all came together.
I'm just trying to think back. I don't remember when people started to eat outside.
Well, this was, of course, weather
Summer.
permitting only, and it was Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
yeah.
So
60s.
sometimes it was a little precarious when you got up and it was pretty cloudy and you weren't sure what was going to happen, but you still had to be ready. So it was, and my mother and my stepdad were the ones that actually did the outside grilling. So that was pretty neat.
A family affair.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
That is nice. That
And
is
they
nice.
worked cheap.
Don't go there. I remember working my father for 25 cents a week.
Yeah, yeah.
That probably was a lot of money way back when.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So we now have the White Hat.
Yep.
Did you participate in any other restaurants? Did you purchase any other restaurants, work them?
Yes, I did. I only, after that, I only worked for myself. I operated that for, I don't know, about 12, 14 years,
Wow.
I guess. And it's an all-consuming, the way I operated was all-consuming because I was the guy that made it all happen. It isn't like you had was in a position to be a non-participant in it. I had to do it.
You're a worker.
So after, I think I operated that for maybe around 13 years or so.
Wow.
And then I got out of that, and I met my wife Tracy, and then we wound up a couple of years later, we bought the Covered Bridge restaurant in Campton. And we operated that for, well, I'm not sure, I guess 4 or 5 years, something like
You
that.
keep staying by the water. You had that
Yeah.
lovely stream there. You
Oh.
had the lake over there.
Yeah, it was beautiful there. The Covered Bridge still is. And I might add, they're still operating it and doing a magnificent job.
Good.
Really, really great.
Did they have the porch? Did you have
Yeah.
a porch there at that
No,
time?
we added the porch.
You added the
Yeah.
porch.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Nice touch.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we did that for, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I started to fool around a little bit with real estate. And so we wound up selling that and fooled around with real estate for a while. And then an opportunity arose for the restaurant at the end of Plymouth, which at that time was the Down Under.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we bought that. It had some hard times, and we bought that through the bank. And I don't know, I think we operated that for maybe 12, 13 years.
Who did it entice? Were there college students that were walking in there?
No, you know, it's funny because we'd been out of the business for probably 10 years from the Covered Bridge,
Yeah.
and not knowing what to expect. when we opened, it's like we'd been there forever. We opened up with a waiting line, so it wasn't no challenge. We kind of resumed what we'd previously done, and we already had a great market of customers. So we're very fortunate. Yeah.
How long did you hold that for?
I believe around 12, 13 years.
And then do you remember who you sold it to?
Yes, I did. I sold it to an executive from Burger King, no less.
Wow.
And he didn't, I don't know what he thought he was buying, but he had long enough to know that it was a hands-on business, and you're not going to operate it with just hiring somebody to do it. So unfortunately, he did not do very well, and we all felt bad about that. But not only that, but our customers.
Yeah.
So, but that was the end of the food business.
Have you retired yet, or now you're going on to another opportunity?
No, I've not done much since. Fooled around a little with real estate, and we.
That sounds pretty good, Tracy.
Yeah. We built a home up in the woods about 30 years ago, up in New Hampton, and we're pretty happy up there. Tracy had horses, and
Oh, wow.
and it was a great. It's a great place to live.
I think when we have nature around us, we're all happy.
Yes.
Yeah, as we get older, we
Yeah.
want to have that opportunity to go outside and
Yeah.
listen to the birds and smell the flowers.
Yeah. We're bordered by state forest, and we have a fair amount of acreage, so we have a lot of privacy. Yeah. A little fly fishing pond that the state operates right at the bottom of our driveway. It's on a little gravel road. Sometimes that gets a little testy.
I'm going to get your address. It sounds too good.
You're welcome. There's a big sign there that says "Keep out," but don't pay any attention to that.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So I think over time you learned a lot, and you put that into practice for one business, and then you did the same thing for another one.
Exactly. Yes.
And it worked out okay for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Mostly, I think it's just plain common sense and an element of luck.
You also had to put out a good product in the restaurant business.
yeah,
you
you
knew
do.
that.
Yeah.
To keep us coming back. Absolutely. Nice.
But I think to be successful, you have to do whatever. You can't just think things are going to happen. You have to kind of make them happen.
I use the word hustler. You really have to go
Yeah,
after something.
yeah.
And you've already said it.
Yeah.
You just can't give it to one other person to do.
Yeah.
You have to be involved in all the facets of the business to make
Yeah.
it a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great industry. I wouldn't want to be in it now.
And why do you say that?
Well, with the way the economy is and inflation, and it just seems to be very, very difficult right now to be doing that type of business.
Good timing
For me,
on your
anyway.
part then.
Yeah.
Good timing. All
Yeah.
right. Let's move a little bit if we can. You live in New Hampton now.
Yep.
And you've been there for how many years?
I would say about 32 years.
It's a long time. I'd like to ask some questions, if I could, maybe a little bit about when you were a child in Campton, but also include New Hampton now, if I could.
Yeah.
Think you're ready? Any reflections? You've spent three decades in one place. When you think of New Hampton, or remember Campton, what was it like when you were a teenager or a young adult, or today? Anything come to mind? You've already said it. The first one foremost for me was where you live. There's still there's some privacy, and that's so important to us. You have nature abounding there as well.
Yeah. Well, I think as an early childhood, we lived on a gravel road and up and back of Campton Pond, and it was approximately a mile down to the dam to get to the village. But
So you walked a great deal.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, got a bicycle at some point, but as a kid, I used to spend a lot of time in the woods, just in the woods. I used to call it taking a couple old dead sandwiches, and I'd be roaming around the woods with maybe cucumber or tomato, and of course you know what those are like when you get ready to eat them. So those are my dead sandwiches, but I love the woods.
Good, good.
Yeah,
I'm going to jump at you if I can. Did you have a best friend that you might have done some of these things with? You both like the same thing.
Yes, I did. I made a lot of friends over the years. Yeah, we had a little kids band when we were young, and which didn't amount to anything, but we had fun with it. You know, we all thought we could do something. But
Did you play an instrument?
I played a little bit of guitar at one
A
point.
little bit of a guitar.
Yeah.
Does he still do that today?
No, not at all. But no, it just was a great place growing up, and it seems, looking back on it now, our living is the same situation as it was when I was a kid.
You're so fortunate.
Yes, we are.
You are so fortunate to
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Another one. I always talk about memories of the past. Now I'd like to talk about the weather if I could, just a little bit. We've had some snow of late. We're going to have more tonight. We're anticipating.
Yeah.
We never know what we're going to get in central New Hampshire. But if I said to you, weather, what would you say back to me?
Weather?
Yeah. In the years past, what comes to mind? Did any of the places where you lived as a child, or even now, did you have floods? Did you have ice jams? Did you have hail?
Well, I've seen quite a few ice jams over the years, and in fact, there's been quite a few of them in Plymouth. We used to get them quite frequently in the Mad River in Campton. And, you know, we've had witnessed a certain amount of flooding, but it never really personally affected us. Although it has, you know, in many cases, many people, we've been fortunate.
Good, I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just always mystified to see the Pemmy come on this side of the
Yeah.
road or that side of the
Yeah.
road. And you
Always
can,
seen that many times.
Yeah.
Gosh, yes. Yeah.
We've been fortunate in the last decade, or
Yeah.
last decade or so, I think we've done okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We still have that gasoline station on the Holderness side that will have the line there,
Yeah.
and it will tell you
Yeah.
how high it got and what the date was.
Norm Smith, yeah.
Yeah,
Norm
oh, wow,
Smith's.
you just went backwards.
Yeah.
That was fun. Thank you for doing that, Norm Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Fires. Are there any fires that come to mind? It could be an industry, a business on the main street, someone's home.
Well, the worst fire that I ever was aware of was a fire in Thornton, New Hampshire, when I was just a youngster. And a house caught on fire, and I think it was 5 children and the husband all burned to death before they could save them. And that was up on Route 3 in Thornton. And that's the worst fire I can remember. But I do remember quite a few fires. There was a huge fire in Sandwich Notch when I was a kid living in Campton. And they recruited all the males that could fight, and they sent them up on the trains that went from Draper Corporation through the Beebe River up to Sandwich Notch.
Right.
To fight the fire. And that lasted for quite a few days. And you could see from where we lived in Campton, it looked like the whole top of the mountain was on fire.
Wow.
That was a pretty bad fire. And I was just a little tyke when that happened.
Do we
But
know how that started?
No, I do not. Possibly lightning or something. But
Something natural.
it was, that was quite horrendous. And there have been many other fires around, but the one in Thornton was the worst one. And many fires in around Plymouth over the years, from the Grossman's across the bridge in
Right.
Holderness.
Right.
And there was Grossman's and the sawmill down there that caught a fire. And of course Chase's grain mill.
Wow, that's a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is now in the back of Newbury's. There was a big grain feed store that caught on fire and burned. There've been many fires.
But you always remember them when there's a loss of life.
Yes.
And that story
yeah,
is sad.
Yeah.
From what I understand, wherever that was located, the home was located, there is a plaque there in the ground now
Yeah.
that says what happened and when.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we never
Yeah.
have to go through that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. How about a happy note, if we can? Let's see, what were we doing? You shared with me something, I'm going to find it if I can, and it was a couple of pictures here. I'd like to do this.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the Plymouth Fair, is it correct?
That is the Plymouth Fair.
And it makes me, you're part of that. You're part of the Plymouth Fair.
Well, I was the director for 2 or 3 years,
Uh-huh.
and that was my good friend Milton Huckins,
Mm-hmm.
and that was he and I grading the racetrack for the last year that the fair had racing.
And do you know when that is? I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm not sure, but again, it was, I believe the last year of the fair, and that was, I think in the back of that there might be a date.
I have a date of September 90, but that could be
Yeah.
when the picture was taken?
Yeah, well, that was it.
Yeah.
90.
All right,
Yeah,
1990.
that was kind of a fun thing. He had an old hand grader on the back of his tractor, and we were going round and round the track.
So what was your responsibility associated with the fair?
Just a commissioner, trying to, sort of a board of directors, and by the time that I joined that, there was Stan Hilliard from Hilliard's Candy and Woodstock, and of course Woody Timpson, who was a fixture up there at the fair. And I forget now, Fran Wendelboe was on the board of directors also. And again, that was 90, 91. It was really sad to see that not be able to operate. But it was the time, and they'd lost the 4-H, and
There we go.
The costs were just prohibitive of continuing it.
People have asked over and over again, they always enjoy
Yeah.
going to the fair.
Yeah.
What was the most fun part, I would ask.
Yeah.
But why did it go under? And you're just stating that
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It just had its time, I think, and I don't think there's anything anybody could have done.
We don't have too many fairs left in New Hampshire, do we?
Well, not a lot of them. There's 3 or 4, I guess, that have been fairly successful, but they're all struggling a little bit too.
Well, it's
just
dependent upon the weather,
the times. Yeah, yeah, it is.
but we were the lucky ones because we could partake. And if I asked you, your position at commissioner, and then did you go there as a child?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What was the best part for you?
Oh, it was a fun thing to go. There was always Joey Chitwood or Irish Horan, and of course we had a lot of people that worked there, and also Denny Day, who was a good friend of mine. He did a lot of announcing for a lot of the thrill shows, and Denny Dearborn, of course,
Yep.
participated in the Irish Horan and some of the auto shows. So it was a fun thing, and also there was a lot of great entertainment provided, and that was one of the things that we really couldn't keep up with, was the cost
the
of
cost.
entertainment,
Okay.
because you had to have them for the draw,
Yeah.
and they just got too expensive.
Well, we were told, this is me now talking, we could actually hear what was happening. The entertainment was so good, so
Oh, yeah.
loud,
Yeah.
that we're outside of the seating and we could hear it.
Yeah.
That would probably led to its demise as well, a piece. Why pay if I didn't have to go through there? I'm a kid now.
Well, I don't know. To my knowledge, the times that I went, the grandstand was always full.
Wow.
So I don't know that they could have got any more in there anyway. But it was a fun place,
Yeah.
and it was a real, I don't know, I was going to say county fair, but like the VFW and all the local clubs, they had little food spaces, and there was just a lot of local participation that everybody kind of got into and enjoyed.
Well, it was just fun to walk down the venue at the areas
yes,
and
it
say
was.
hi to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
said there was so many types of food that we could have, a lot of junk food. It was great.
yeah,
It was great.
yeah. It was fun.
All right, then. Let's see. Any events that come to mind? You've had birthdays, you've had weddings, passings. Is there anything special? Did your towns have any celebrations that come to mind? Again, we can pass. I remember the 250th of Plymouth. I can remember the 200th of Plymouth,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I didn't know if you would have had.
Well, actually, there was a lot of changes in Plymouth in the short time that I lived in Plymouth, which was the 4 years.
Yeah.
For example, one of the bigger changes, I think, was when they moved the Maple Diner, which was located now where the Pemmy Bank is, near the foot of the library here. There was a Maple Diner.
Yes.
And they sold that diner and moved it out to West Plymouth at the Circle. And that became Clyde Booth's Diner. And shortly after that, they blasted out that spot and they built the Pemmy Bank. And it was at that time that I was working at Blake's. At the same time, you were with your family watching Eisenhower in his big fancy convertible,
1955.
who had just cut the ribbon and headed up to Woodstock. So that was quite an experience.
Wow.
But there were a lot of changes in Plymouth from the time I was a kid. What we touched on a little bit earlier, we were talking about the snow and whatnot. And I was again working at Blake's when the last snow train came to Plymouth. And that was out of Boston. And it was John Hancock employees. And they came to Plymouth, and that was when the old Pemmy Hotel was still here. And I don't remember how many employees there were, but they skied at Frontenac, and there was a couple other little areas they skied at. But it was quite a feat for Plymouth to come up with enough accommodations to accommodate these people. And it was a big thing for Plymouth.
Wow.
And that Sunday night, when the snow train came to pick up the people to take them back to Boston, I was working at Blake's, and he sent me down to the station with 2 big stainless steel thermoses of coffee and multiple packs of Cushman donuts, and to serve to the people getting on the train. So that was a big experience.
Did you make $1?
Oh, I'm sure I got paid, but I doubt if it was $1.
I was being funny in your.
Yeah, but we probably were selling coffee then for a dime a cup or something, or maybe a nickel a donut. I don't remember.
I've always said with the reading I've done on the history of Plymouth that the railroad was so beneficial to what Plymouth became.
Oh, yes.
And this is a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the students from some of the outlying towns came to school on the train from Rumney and Wentworth and a lot of areas.
Betty Batchelder would have said she came from Vermont, so it was even out of state for her to attend the Teachers College here.
Well, I remember as just a youngster, my mother had a sister who lived in Montpelier, and we went to Montpelier to see her sister on the train, just my mother and I, and that was quite impressive as a little kid. Get on that train and yeah. But there was a lot of train activity back then.
I wonder what Plymouth would have been like if we did not have a railroad.
Yeah.
I don't need to
Oh,
go.
to feed all these hotels that we had.
And continue to go up to the White
Yeah,
Mountains.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. That's a good one. I was just going to ask you, major changes of town. We just did that. How about Campton? You lived in Campton for a while. You were brought up in Campton as a boy.
Yeah.
Any changes there that come to mind real quick?
Campton was a great little town to grow up in. It really was. You knew everybody. Everybody looked out after each other, and it just was. I don't think you could ask for a better place to grow up than Campton was.
That's really perfect.
The pond, of course, it was after the war, and the CCs came in and they built the dam. And they dredged out that whole area, and there was quite a campgrounds, government campgrounds on the backside of that pond. And many people would come and pitch their tents for the summertime. And the women and the children would stay there for the summer. And the husbands and fathers would go back to Boston and work, and then come up Friday nights and spend the weekend. And it was that went on all summer. So you had all kinds of kids that you didn't know you could play with. And they had a beautiful big bathhouse on Campton Pond.
It is no longer there.
Oh, no, it hasn't been there for
Okay.
years.
Never heard of it.
But a beautiful beach, sandy beach. Well, the government came in and they did all that work after the war. And it was beautiful. And that there were cabins, actually cabins on Campton Pond, on the backside of the pond. And these cabins rented little boats, little rowboats. You could go out and fish. And
Sounds wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Let's talk people a little bit. People that have affected you over time. It could be a best friend that you have. It could be people you went to get some their advice for businesses.
Oh, there were quite a few of those. Yeah, when I first was about to go into business, of course I got to know Ken Bartlett at the bank,
Right.
and Carl Adams, of course, and again I mentioned earlier George Gilman.
That's right.
There were a lot of people that I knew that I wasn't bashful about asking them advice, and it always seemed like they were pretty eager to give it, which was a big, was a big thing for a kid. I often think of how things change. Plymouth has changed so much since I was a kid, and
I'm going to ask you how so. How has Plymouth changed?
I guess one of the things might be, can you imagine seeing someone like Carl Adams trudging up and down the street carrying groceries for people and putting groceries in their cars?
I can.
And now getting back there, of course Plymouth had a big First National.
That's right.
They had an A&P.
Yep.
And then I think it was a Cloverleaf that finally put Mr. Adams in business. I think he bought the Cloverleaf company out and started Adams Market, I believe. But oh gosh, the restaurants that were in Plymouth back when I was a kid, unbelievable amount of them.
I should ask you a question about food. On the main street, or even at your home with Mom, is there anything you miss for food that you had decades ago at one of the restaurants here or within your own house?
No, I just remember always everything being good. I can remember going on a Fauci's, which is where everybody went.
Hang out.
And I used to go in there and I could get a cheese sandwich with mustard and onion for 15 cents.
15 cents.
Yep. And Bernie Ball would be in the window cutting French fries.
Hand-cut French fries.
Hand-cut French fries. And Fauci's was the place that most people wound up on, whenever, perhaps with a date or just whatever.
Before or after the movies.
Yeah.
Right next door, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Walk downtown, you could go to the movies.
Yeah.
Didn't need a vehicle, which was kind of nice. It was
Yeah.
kind of nice.
But there were so many restaurants and places in Plymouth and
Yeah.
drugstores and
Well, Plymouth was a little bit bigger than a lot of the towns
yes.
surrounding us. That's
Yeah.
where people came to socialize a little bit, get a little culture every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have some pictures that you brought in. Some of the audience may have seen these before. Let's see if we can. This is a picture of.
That's the Livermore Bridge in Plymouth. And the reason I bought that is because when I was a kid in Campton, my grandparents came to Plymouth every Friday to do the shopping. And we would come down Route 175 and go across that bridge. And it scared the heck out of me because it was a pretty shaky bridge. And I happened to see that. That's a very common reproduction of the bridge.
It's beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the reason I bought it. And of course, the other end of that bridge was where the old Plymouth Hospital was. After you came off the bridge on the Plymouth side, there was a great big white building, and that was Plymouth Hospital.
That's where I was born.
Yep.
A lot of us can say
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
before it came into town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you've got this picture here, again, of the Livermore Bridge,
Yeah.
black and white. Am I right?
Yeah.
Here's my other one. Hold on.
And I believe that came probably from a calendar, a picture of a calendar or
All right.
something.
But what's interesting about the picture, the number of buildings that are there that are connected.
Yeah, that was quite a. I'm not sure what they manufactured there, but that was, I'm sure, provided a lot of employment for a lot of people for a lot of years.
That'd be interesting to find out. Interesting
Yeah.
question. Very
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that was fun.
And that operated. I can remember that operating, but I don't remember what they did there.
There's still a lot of, I've seen college students there. We attempted, I couldn't do it, fear of heights,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
walked a couple years ago, I said I need to do this. So I went maybe 3/4 the way across the bridge,
Oh,
and I think I backtracked.
is the bridge still there?
The bridge is still there.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I don't think I realized that.
well, different,
Oh, okay.
but different, all right?
Yeah, this one has a little hat on it, and I don't remember that.
Yeah, pieces of it,
The roof on it.
yeah, kind of nice. Oh, we
Yeah.
have something else you brought in. Thank you, thank you. This is interesting.
Well, during one of my hiatuses from the food business, I got in the antique business. And I used to go and clean out a lot of houses. And I, as a result, came across a lot of this type of thing. And I have a fair amount of it at home. And that's one, I was going through some of the stuff in the barn the other day, and I happened to see that. And there's a lot more which I will bring in for you. And that's how I came by that.
Well, I'm going to read it, so thank you. It's
Yeah.
dated 1909. We have to ask ourselves, why did somebody keep this? Did they keep all of the Plymouth records at the time? And those of you that are much, much younger than us, it's no
Yeah.
longer called the Plymouth Record, but the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Its name has morphed over time. But 1909, one of the disasters of the area was the burning of the Pemigewasset
Yes.
inn that we had on the off the main street. So I'm eager to read it to see if there's anything about this.
Yeah.
But again, 1909, just
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Yeah, which is fun, which is fun.
And the same people that, the same company that printed that is the ones that printed my poster.
Oh, all right then.
Perhaps different management, maybe different owners, but the same
Connection.
building.
Hey, we're all one community here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. I have a question that I try to ask everyone at the very end, but before I do that, I'd like to say, are there any more stories that you'd like to share, or anything else you'd like to say to the audience today?
No, I don't think so. I would just think that Plymouth would probably be a good town for anybody to grow up in. And the only other thing I might mention is if a person is young and they think they want to do something, or they have something in mind, don't sidetrack that.
Oh,
Pay
that sounds like
attention,
advice.
pursue your interest, and there's a good opportunity if you want it that bad. It's probably going to happen.
Wise words.
There's
Wise
always
words.
there's always disappointment along the way. Nothing is ever for sure, but there's a lot to be thankful for and work towards and enjoy and appreciate.
I think your disappointment, oftentimes we can turn it around. We need some disappointment to say, I need to work harder, or I need to learn more.
Yeah.
My question was going to be just what you did.
Yeah.
If you were going to give advice to a
Yeah.
group of younger folks, what might you say to them? And you just did.
Nothing's easy and nothing's for sure.
Wow. Wow.
You just work at it. Cross your fingers.
Dick, I want to thank you for coming in today.
Well, it's been fun.
It was,
It's been fun.
People
Yeah.
get nervous about doing this, but we're just sharing stories with one another, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. I would say to the audience that is with us, thank you for joining us for another Memories program. I think and I hope others think, the memories and stories we've been sharing over the years are important. I hope that you people maybe steal from us and try to do this on a smaller scale for your home. Do it with your parents or your grandparents. Take the pictures. I always say this at the end, so you're used to me. Please take the pictures out every once in a while. Go through them with relatives. Identify. Make sure there's something on the back of them, the date, And if there's an event, a story that needs to be shared, I think the future generations would say thank you. Too often we don't get that opportunity to find our pictures. That takes a long time. It's a major project. We understand that.
Yeah.
But they're full of memories.
Yeah.
And then to be able to, someone in your family might be able to, in the next 30 years, when we're not here, possibly,
Yeah.
they'll hear your voice. They'll remember what your voice sounds like. And for me, that's really important.
Yeah.
Really important. So I
Well,
hope you had a good
it's
time.
interesting because once you you get thinking about something, it's amazing how much you can recall that you just it's always there if you can find it. And it's kind of fun to some extent just to reminisce and yeah.
There's a few people out there that are starting to take their stories and putting them on paper.
Yeah.
Had they done it over time, that's possible. But some people are now making booklets
Yeah.
to share with the next generation
Yeah.
their stories, what they can still remember, just like we did today. Yes, it does take an awful lot of time, but those people that are touching that booklet later on, reading your words later on, might be really important to a family. So I want to thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you again in another month or so with another episode of Memories of Plymouth. One more time, sir.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you very much. It's been
It was
fun.
fun. Yeah,
It's
it
been
was
fun.
fun.
Yep.
Yep.